In the Melrose public school system, Black students are suspended at higher rates than white students. Melrose has one of the highest rates of racial disparity in school discipline compared with 12 neighboring communities. In your role as mayor, which also gives you a seat on the school committee, how do you plan to eliminate racial inequities in school discipline? We're going to start with Ms. Madero Solano.
Thank you. Now, this is one of tonight's topics of discussion, which I find the most troubling. Discipline should be fair, and all students should be treated equally. We should not have a discipline system with differing behavior standards or differing punishments for the same conduct. There may be, however, some underlying issues here and strategies that will help these troubling statistics. The school needs to acknowledge the background of the students involved in disciplinary issues and take a trauma-informed approach to how they deal with behavioral issues in the schools and the punishments imposed. We also need to make sure that the parents of Black students have the same access and opportunities to interact regularly with teachers and administrators in their schools, because over time, having or not having these relationships can affect student disciplinary outcomes. It's unfortunate, but people are human, and that's a fact. That's why we need to work to improve it. We need to recognize that Black students face microaggressions often on a daily basis in our society and often in school. And this atmosphere can and does affect the reactions to issues differently. We also need to make sure that any discipline imposed for any of it, we have a robust appeal process for students and parents in which all parties are informed of their rights, especially when it comes to suspensions, which could have a lasting effect on the student record and one's ability to access or be accepted into higher educational opportunities. We also must regularly review discipline statistics, both internally and with an outside review, to make sure that we're continuing to monitor and address any disparities in punishment. As mayor and as a member of the school committee, if elected, I'll work towards eliminating these racial inequities in school discipline.
Thank you. Ms. Grigoritis.
Thank you for this question. I think one of the most important responsibilities of the mayor is serving on the school committee. And this matters to me as a parent of an incoming 9th grade, 4th grader, as a former board member of the Melrose Ed Foundation, as one of the founding members of the One Melrose Override campaign, as the daughter of a public schools educator, and as myself a graduate of a public school system. This is a very serious issue, and I know that Melrose Public Schools and the school committee have recently taken some steps to address this, including making changes to secondary school protocols around discipline and restorative justice and deploying a new reporting form for bullying. I am pleased that our leadership teams at the middle school and high school are taking this issue seriously and engaging in taking action, and yet we need to go farther. We need to elevate the voices of students of color, hearing their concerns and working to address them in a trauma-informed way, while also shifting policy in response to their experiences. Their voices are central to how we move forward to see where we can continue to understand and improve. Again, having worked with victims and survivors of violence for 15 years, I know that we need to do both. We need to analyze data and also into the individual stories that are behind that data. We need to acknowledge harm. We need to validate lived experiences and the repercussions of systemic discrimination. We need to be comfortable with the fact that there is not one definition of justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hammer.
Great, thank you. So I come to this question as a former Boston Public High School teacher, living the experience in the classroom, as well as a parent of 2 students at the Lincoln going into middle school next year. And I've seen that inequality shows up in many different ways, more than just discipline, like investment in our students in our schools and access to the services and resources that they need. But on discipline, if a policy like detention or discipline is producing inequity by populations being overrepresented by the data, then you know that there is something wrong with that ecosystem. We are not serving that population equitably. Something is broken. We need some new professional development standards and new systems that counteract these biases that impact Black and brown male students disproportionately. I have said at some of our meetings together and in other meetings of marginalized communities, we can no longer rely on those who are harmed to push us forward in policy. We have to be proactive. Equity in education can only be achieved through equitable resources first. If students are underserved in schools, they are more likely to experience educational disparities, disproportionate discipline, and diminished outcomes that can perpetuate cycles of inequality throughout the rest of their lives. We have to come together to address this, and the responsibility is on us as leaders, as administrators, and school committee members, and we need to work in partnership with our educators and caregivers to develop a system where those students can learn and thrive. And as your mayor, I will remain accessible to people who are in need of support and help so that we can finally detangle our structural our structural deficit and how we actually are able to address our students in need. So thank you.